You want to know how my pumpkin got Cordelia Whitmore arrested by the FBI. And honestly, I'm still trying to wrap my head around it because it's 6:00 a.m. Standing there in my pajamas, staring at Cordelia pointing at my 847-pound pumpkin like it was a pipe bomb. I definitely wasn't expecting to be called a domestic terrorist by a woman in heels and a hard hat. Yeah, that happened Cordelia at my porch. 3 security guards lined up behind her like I was running a speakeasy, and some poor structural engineer with a laser measurer looking like he'd rather be anywhere else. All of this for a pumpkin. You can't make this stuff up. Now, if you're picturing a death-defying slope, don't. My dangerous hill is the kind of gentle roll you'd trip over if you weren't paying attention, but Cordelia is out here ranting about my pumpkin rolling down and flattening children, her words, not mine. I grew that pumpkin Goliath with my late granddad's secret fertilizer recipe found in an old leather journal when my life had basically fallen apart. Lost my wife to cancer, lost my way in the city, and then bam! A letter comes from a Vermont lawyer my grandfather left me his Victorian house. Welcome to Maple Grove Lane population, way too many busybodies, one giant pumpkin and me. So there's Cordelia spitting legalese before sunrise. Section 17-3 of the Vegetation Ordinance. 4 feet max, permanent agricultural installation. She's waving her iPad around iPad case, probably worth more than my mortgage. I sip my coffee looking at her and her back up like I'm about to explain the laws of physics to a group of raccoons. Cordelia, it's a pumpkin. Halloween's in 2 days. You ever heard of temporary decorations? Not a hint of humor. Decorations are temporary. This thing's been here since April. Permanent. It's basically a farm, she snaps. Meanwhile, the young security guard looks like he's seeing the Grand Canyon for the first time. Honestly, Goliath is beautiful. Deep orange skin ridges like a globe, 847 pounds of pure come at me, HOA. And here's the thing, while Cordelia's posturing, she keeps glancing at my porch. That look in her eye, like a vulture spotting a half-dead rabbit. And that's when I realized she wasn't just after my pumpkin, she was after my house. Still, I hold my ground. Unless you got a court order, you and your clipboard brigade need to leave, I tell her. The engineer tries to mumble something about root systems and safety, but Cordelia cuts him off so fast his head almost spins. Cue the entrance of Jasper Hillrest, neighbor retired judge, absolute legend shuffling over in slippers and a bathrobe at 7 a.m., looking like he's seen it all. Cordelia, you harassing this young man over a pumpkin? Again. The whole mood shifts. Cordelia tries to brush him off, but Jasper, bless him, starts rattling off every time she's pulled this same trick. Oak trees, beehives, heritage, tomatoes, you name it. Don't let her buffalo you, Sterling. That pumpkin's a thing of beauty. When he mentions the old harvest festival, Cordelia's face goes from smug to spooked just for a second. That's when I really start wondering what's buried in this neighborhood's past. After Cordelia storms off with a threat about chainsaws and bills that would make a grown man cry, Jasper sits with me and spells it out. Cordelia's destroyed more neighbors than a tornado through a trailer park, but she's careful, she's smart, and her family runs half the county. Suddenly, I'm remembering the margins of my grandfather's deed, something about perpetual harvest rights. Jasper's eyes light up like a kid at Christmas. You might have the silver bullet. The festival wasn't just some contest, it gave special protection to properties that participated, tax benefits, immunity from a bunch of city rules. And it never got repealed. So we hustle to the library. Waverly Sinclair Town historian, punk rock haircut, 3 tables of files, goes through my grandfather's documents like she's cracking the Da Vinci Code. Any property that wins the festival gets an exemption from all municipal agricultural ordinances perpetually unless the owner consents to give it up. My jaw just about hits the table. Every time my grandfather won, he renewed that protection. And get this, there's an entry from 1996, last year before the festival ended. First place E. Blackstone. But My granddad was in a nursing home by then, so who was E. Blackstone? Right then my phone buzzes with an anonymous text. Another growing tip, just like the ones I've been getting for months, always signed E. Waverly's wheels are turning, Jasper's practically vibrating with excitement. And I'm realizing someone's been quietly protecting this house and its legacy the whole time. We start digging, and suddenly the whole scheme snaps into focus. Cordelia has been using every Halloween to pick off neighbors with violations, force them to sell low. Then her husband's company snaps up the houses to make a corridor to the old fairgrounds for some mega development. My pumpkin and my house are the keystone. And that's when E texts again. She'll come at dawn with a crew, document everything. The covenant is stronger than she knows. That night, I'm poring over Granddad's journals. Waverly's building a social media campaign, and Jasper's rallying what's left of the neighborhood. We find out Cordelia's husband's been using the still active Harvest Festival as a tax dodge, which accidentally kept my property's exemption alive. It's poetic, her own greed set the trap. News breaks out Cordelia's on TV calling my pumpkin a public safety hazard. Animated graphics of my pumpkin rolling down the street like a runaway train. The whole thing would be hilarious if she wasn't so dead serious. But when the segment brings in an independent engineer who says the pumpkin couldn't roll if it tried, and neighbors start a petition to keep it, Cordelia's in trouble. E texts again. The news was her mistake. The covenant is stronger than she knows. P.S. Your great-grandmother would be proud. Now I'm really spinning. My great-grandmother Eleanor Blackstone supposedly died in 2005. Or did she? Waverly uncovers records filed by a Dr. Blackwood, my grandfather's sister, married into that family. Turns out E is still alive, hiding as Eleanor Blackwood, keeping the tradition going from the shadows. This town is better than Netflix, I swear. We stay up all night prepping. Mrs. Morrison brings out old council tapes, Cordelia forging election signatures. Harold the engineer is ready to blow the whistle on her faked safety reports. By dawn, neighbors have evidence cameras and the courage to finally stand up. Then, just as the sun is thinking about coming up, Cordelia arrives with a full convoy, trucks, chainsaws, the works. But standing on my porch is Eleanor Blackwood, 97 years old, and moving like a woman half her age ready for war. She officially declares the Harvest Festival open, pulls out the original charter complete with wax seals and ribbons. Any property entered in the festival is immune from interference. Cordelia tries to bark back, but the crowd's gathering, phones are filming, and the feds show up. Yep, 3 black SUVs, 2 police cars, and a very no-nonsense FBI agent. Cordelia Whitmore, you're under arrest for wire fraud, racketeering, conspiracy to commit fraud and tax evasion. She screams it's all a setup, blames me, blames the pumpkin, nobody's listening. Neighbors are cheering. Agent Rivera is handing out paperwork, and I'm just trying to process the fact that my pumpkin was the bait for a 6-state investigation. But here's where it gets good. Eleanor, Waverly, Jasper, me and half the block put together a harvest festival so big, so wild that Maple Grove Lane makes national news. Produce tables, string lights, neighbors bringing out the vegetables they'd been hiding for years. My pumpkin takes first prize. The crowd goes nuts. Even the FBI sticks around for the cider and kettle corn. With Cordelia gone, the HOA dissolves. Jasper gets elected president of the new voluntary association. First order of business burn. Cordelia's violation forms in a backyard bonfire. The Mitchells get their garden back. The Hendersons rebuild their beehives. And even Harold starts his own code enforcement business, fighting bogus violations instead of creating them. Waverly and I get married right there on the lawn the following fall next to my new, slightly smaller pumpkin, and nobody minds. Eleanor finally tells me the secret ingredient to her prize-winning fertilizer coffee grounds of all things. That's why my granddad always talked to his pumpkins during his morning coffee. And Cordelia, 18 years in federal prison, where rumor has it she's trying to start an inmate garden club. No takers yet. You want the lesson? It's this: sometimes the law's on your side, but you have to dig it up. Sometimes justice wears handcuffs. Sometimes it looks like a 97-year-old woman who faked her own death just to take down a bully. And sometimes it's an 847-pound pumpkin sitting on your front lawn, daring the world to try and move it. Would you have stood up or packed up and moved out? I genuinely want to know. Drop your answer in the comments, and while you're at it, share your own neighborhood nightmare or justice story. Maybe, just maybe, the real magic is neighbors who finally say enough. And if you believe in that kind of justice, go ahead and hit like, because in my book, every neighborhood deserves at least one Goliath.